Hey guys, here is the painting that I created. I just want to thank Katie Storing for allowing us to paint her photo. Enjoy guys, take care. All right guys, here we go. I'm going to get started. I'm going to use this brush over here to get started. I'm just going to paint the horizon line. Maybe a quarter of the way down. So I'm going to wet my brush and I'm going to take the excess water off, and then I'm going to go into a very light blue. So I'm going to take some of my blue, some of the white, mix it together, maybe a little bit of yellow. And I'm just going to paint a horizon line. Doesn't have to be straight. Maybe just a bit lower. Okay, so I'm going to rinse that paint off, and I'm going to go with a larger brush. I'm going to wet that brush, take the excess water off on my paper towel, and I'm going to go into the dark blue and some pink. I'm going to paint the top part. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white to my mixture. And I'll paint a little bit more. I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm going to go into the pink with some white. And I'm going to go ahead and paint a little bit more with the pink. Just adding some white. Okay, I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to go back with my smaller brush, and I'm going to paint in some yellow now. So clean brush, just yellow. I'm going to start a little bit lower. Don't worry about those green lines. They're going to be covered up with trees. Okay, so next we're going to go back to that a little bit later when it's dry. I'm going to paint some of the water now. I'm not going to clean my brush. And I'm going to go into the blue and pink again. A little bit of white. And I'm going to go 1/4 of the way up, and I'm going to start painting the water. I could have changed brushes at this point. So again, kind of like a purplish color. You could use a larger brush. So blue, pink, and white. I'm going to grab some pink. I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm going to go into the pink and some white together, like I said, without cleaning the brush. And then I'm going to add a little bit of pink here. A little bit of pink and white again, and just going to continue with the water, just going pretty much straight across, kind of leaving it streaky. Okay, so I'm just going to clean this brush off. And now I'm going to go into the yellow. I'm going to paint some yellow here. And the purple should still be a little bit wet. So I'm going to make sure that I drag my yellow in there. I did not clean my brush, and I'm going to go and add a little bit of blue and white together without cleaning my brush. I'm just going to add a little bit of blue down here. Make it a little bluer. And a little bit over here. I'm not trying to make it exactly the same, but I am trying to, I'm just using it as a guide. That is the reference photo. Okay, so next we're going to work on the trees. Okay, so next I'm going to take a small brush again, smaller brush, and I'm going to use black and yellow together. So I'm going to take some of this yellow and a little bit of black and mix them together until I get a shade of green that I'm happy with. So I'm going to paint most of my trees with this shade. So I'm going to choose a spot where I'm going to decide where the tree line will get a little bit shorter. So I think I'll choose right over here. Right over here. Now I'm just going to go up and down. Not too much paint on my brush. Kind of scribbling the paint on there. And sometimes I'm going to touch a little bit of the black that I have left over, take the excess paint off, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of black in there. So I'm just gently tapping the brush on the canvas. Do that on the other side. And just keep playing around with it until you're happy with what it looks like in the distance. Just darkening the area on the bottom of the trees. Go back a little bit later and do paint up another layer. So I'm just going to take some of that dark green and I'm just going to lay down a little bit of dark areas in the water. Going to go back to that later, more layers later. So now I'm going to take some of this green and I'm going to put some of this green right over here in this area. Not really paying attention to exactly, I'm not trying to make it perfect or smooth, or just kind of scribbling it on. Maybe some here as well. A little bit of grass. Right on the edge of the water. Some of the green, some of the black. Just kind of flicking the brush. Not a lot of paint on this brush. I'm going to keep that same brush and I'm going to load it again, a little bit heavier, and I'm just going to go and put some foliage up here. And I'm moving the brush around very randomly. I'm not just painting like the same way the whole time. I'm kind of moving the brush around like this as I'm tapping on to make some leaves. I'm leaving some areas. without this green. And I go and try to make even this out a little bit. Again, we can go back to it a little bit later. I'm going to just paint the ground here. So it doesn't really matter what color I do it. So I'm going to take that green, maybe add some yellow to it, and maybe add a little bit of blue to it. So I pretty much added every color I had on my canvas just to lay something down first. Sorry, not on my canvas, on my plate. I'm just going to cover the rest of the canvas with this color. It's kind of gray. I don't like straight lines, so I am kind of scribbling some of this on so it's not so perfect and neat. So I'm just going to wipe the excess paint off of my brush, and I'm going to go into the white only, just the white, and I'm going to just paint out an indication of rocks, where I want the rocks to be. I think I'll have one here. And maybe one over here. Doesn't really matter. Choose where you want to put your rocks. And maybe one over here. I'm just going to go ahead with this same color just to start the trunks for the trees. So this one, I'm going to start it right up here. I used the colors that I had on my plate, and they're not fully mixed, which gives it a little bit of different colors on the tree trunk, which I like. This one is off of the canvas and it meets down to this one. This one's a lot bigger. And then I'm going to put one over here. So I'm just going to take a clean brush and I'm going to take some of this tree off. Clean brush. Clean brush. A little bit of water, lift it up. Lift up some of the paint because it's not dry yet, so it's easy to lift off. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that too much because I'm going to put a lot of leaves on there. So if you want to highlight some of it, you can go into it a little bit with the white without cleaning your brush. So just pick a side to highlight a bit. I'm dry brushing this white on. And I'll get to this side as well. Still have some of this green. And I'm going to go ahead and tap some more foliage here. Green, yellow. And again, we can go back to that a little bit later. Okay, so next we're going to work on the rest of the tree. So I'm going to go prepare a little bit more paint. I'm going to make another mixture of yellow and black together, and we are going to paint this part of the tree. And I'm going to get a different brush. So I'm going to use a fan brush for that. Okay, so I've mixed some black and yellow together and have made this green. And I'm going to use this fan brush to make the trees. the rest of the trees. So I'm going to go into a darker part of this. So I'm not cleaning my brush after I mixed it. I kind of want it a little bit darker, so I'll go into the blacker part of this. And I'm going to go and take a lot of the paint off, not too much. I'm going to choose how I want this to look. So we'll go with just kind of tapping it on. Bit more over here. Do want it a bit darker so it shows, so you can see the difference between the front, you know, the foreground and the background. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Going to take some of this darker paint again, and I'm going to just lay some down in a few areas down here in the grass, just to give a little bit of depth. Got a little bit more blue in there than I wanted, but that's okay, we'll cover it up. We'll put some more green in there, some more yellow in there a little bit later. Okay, I'm gonna go back in there with a little bit of brown next, okay? Okay, so next I have burnt umber, deep yellow, and white, and I'm gonna mix those three colors together. And we're going to paint the earth, the ground. You can add a little bit of black to it, or you can darken it with some of your grayed out color that we had made a little earlier, if you have some left. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint the ground. Leave some dark areas exposed. Don't need a lot of paint. As you can see, I don't know if I went back into the paint at all yet. I'm just going to mix a little bit of whatever I have left on my plate here, just because I want a darker color to put on the rocks. So I have some green, a little bit of blue, some brown. I'm not changing my brush. I just want to darken some areas on some of the rocks. Make the rocks any color you want. I'm gonna go back in without cleaning my brush. And I'm gonna put some more white. I'm gonna go back to the rocks a little bit later, make them a little grayer. Actually, I've got some black over here. Sorry, I thought it was far away. I take another brush and just go into the black while it's still wet. And I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow. On the rocks. Just tapping some paint on the rock, just to give it a little bit of texture. Any color you want. There are all different colors of rocks. And put as many rocks as you want. Just adding a little bit more green and yellow in this area over here. I'm just tapping the paint on, as you can see, in every sort of direction. You can use any shade of green that you want. You don't have to do the same that I'm doing. Maybe I'll darken part of the tree. I'm just dry brushing some areas. Randomly picking some areas. Just to give the tree a little bit of texture. Do the other one as well. Again, just a bit of shadow without cleaning my brush, just because I don't want it to be hard, dark. I don't want the black to be too hard. A little bit of shadow. So pretty much next I'm going to work on the water a little bit more, and the sky I'm going to add a little bit of white or a little bit of very light yellow. So I'll go get a clean plate to do that, and in the end we'll add the little puppy. And that'll be it. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of my white and I'm going to add it a little bit in the sky here. I'm going to dry brush it on. Going to need a couple of layers to hide my little green line. And I'm going to add a little bit of the white in the water. Just going to dry brush that on as well. A little bit of a trail back there where the water runs in to the lake. A little bit of a river, I think. So I'm going to add a little bit of dry brushed white, not a lot of paint at all. Take most of it off. And I'm going to go and brush some on over here. Take a little bit of this pink and mix it with the yellow, the pink. I'm going to make a little bit of a pink with blue. So pink, blue, and a little bit of white. And now I'm going to dry brush tiny little, I don't know if they're little leaves or what exactly it is, but I'm just gonna just put some tiny little clusters. They're going to be tinier as you go further away, these little lines. Tinier, sorry, that one's kind of big. Larger over at the front. Although I find that one a little bit large. I can take some of that off. Okay, so I'm going to grab some of this yellow and I'm going to work, clean my brush, clean this brush. I'll get a clean paper towel. And I'm going to work this area up here a little bit better. I'm going to go into the yellow. And I'm going over some of the white. Just dry brushing downwards with some of that yellow. pink, a little bit of pink and a little bit of white together with a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to add a little bit of that pinky yellow, just going downwards a little bit. Just so it looks a little bit magical. Okay, so next I'm going to get the colors ready to paint the dog out. I've got some of the color left from the sand, and I'm going to use a lot of the black. Black first, and then the sand color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I've got a smaller brush, a little bit of an angle. I'm going to go into the black, and I'm going to paint the shape of kind of like the shape. Well, I'm going to go first with, going to decide where he's going, and I'm going to go an oval shape first. Now I'm going to do the legs on the side. And the head, I'm going to start off by, so the head is not a ball just right on top. I'm going to kind of want it to blend into the body. And then the ears are kind of like on the side here, like this. They're down. And the tail. I guess it's going to go around this rock. I'm going to take some of this excess paint off. I'm going to use the paper towel, take most of it off, and I paint a little bit of a shadow here. Not a lot of paint on my brush. Now I'm going to go in with this sandy color, and I'm going to blend in some little spots. First, I'm going to do this side over here. Too much paint. Take some of that paint off. It's always easier to make the head a little bit too small and then just add to it until you have the right size. Easier to make the body a little bit too skinny too, and then just make it, keep adding to it to give it more volume. There you go, guys. I think that's it. You can keep adding as much as you want. You can keep adding more shadows, more rocks, more sand, anything that you want, you can add to it. I will have to go back and add another layer of white on top of my little green horizon line that I changed from the beginning. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this painting. It was fun. It was one of the girls, I posted this on my Facebook page, and I've had some people send in some photos, and this is the one that I chose to paint. I'll give photo credit to her in the description. All right, thanks guys. Take care.